In the deep heart of ancient Africa, where the Nile curved like a ribbon of glass and the desert winds whispered through endless dunes, there rose a kingdom unlike any other. A kingdom carved not by fear or conquest, but by resilience, and ruled by a queen whose name would echo through eternity. This was Kush, this was Meroe, and this is the story of Amanirenas, the lioness of Kush. Long before Rome cast its shadow across the world, Kush thrived as one of Africa's most powerful civilizations. Its pyramids rose sharply against the horizon, its iron forges glowed like beating hearts, and its warriors carried bows so deadly that foreign armies learned to fear them long before seeing them. For generations, Kush stood alongside Egypt, not as a servant, but as a rival. Its queens, the Kandakes, were known for courage, leadership, and warcraft. They ruled with a balance of wisdom and strength rare in the ancient world. Among them, one would rise above all, Amanirenas. Her name would one day be spoken in the halls of Rome, not in admiration, but in fear. By the 1st century BCE, a new power dominated the Mediterranean. Rome, under Caesar Augustus, had swallowed kingdoms from Spain to Syria. Egypt, once ruled by pharaohs, was now a Roman province. And to rule Egypt meant controlling the gateway to Africa. But Rome's ambitions did not stop at the Nile. Beyond the first cataract lay Kush, wealthy, independent, and unbroken. Rome expected submission. Kush offered none. Tensions rose with each Roman tax demand, each border intrusion, each carved symbol of empire placed on Nubian soil. The breaking point came when Roman officials pushed into territories Kush had governed for centuries. They seized villages, took harvests, and engraved the Eagle of Rome onto stone, a declaration that Kush was next. To Rome, it was strategy. To Kush, it was an insult. And to Amanirenas, it was a challenge. Amanirenas ruled Kush with sharp intelligence and unshakable resolve. She shared power with her husband, King Teretekas, but ancient records are clear. The queen was no figurehead. She was a strategist, a warrior, a presence her people trusted without hesitation. When news of Rome's intrusion reached Meroe, fear spread rapidly, but not within the queen. Amanirenas gathered her generals beneath the stone lions of her palace. She listened to every report, every warning, every prediction of Roman retaliation. Then in calm determination, she spoke. Kush bows to no empire. Her words ignited the kingdom. She rode at the head of her army, spear in hand, cloak billowing behind her like a banner of defiance. Her warriors, archers, cavalry, and infantry forged by desert life, marched with absolute loyalty. They would not wait for Rome to strike first. They would show Rome the strength of Kush. Rome believed no African kingdom could challenge them. Their outposts were lightly guarded, their commanders complacent, their soldiers unprepared for desert warfare. Amanirenas changed that in a single blow. Her armies stormed Syene, modern-day Aswan, catching the Romans completely off guard. The garrison collapsed before forming proper lines. Statues of Augustus were toppled, the Roman governor captured, and the sacred Roman eagle, symbol of imperial power, was taken as a trophy. Never before had anyone humiliated Rome on land it claimed as its own. The shock trembled through Egypt, then through Rome itself. A queen had struck the empire, and she had won. But Amanirenas was not finished. She pushed deeper north, reclaiming territory, breaking Roman morale, and sending a message that empire alone did not create victory. Her people walked across the captured bronze head of Augustus, placed beneath a temple entrance, not out of cruelty, but as a symbol. In Kush, even emperors stand below the people. In Alexandria, Roman officials were stunned. Augustus, ruler of the largest empire on earth, was furious. He dispatched Gaius Petronius, a strict, disciplined commander, to crush Kush and erase its defiance. Petronius marched with heavy infantry, cavalry, archers, and siege engineers, an army designed to flatten resistance. But Rome did not understand the land it entered. The deserts of Nubia did not yield to foreign armies. They swallowed them, and Amanirenas knew how to turn the land itself into a weapon. Rome marched south with the confidence of an empire that believed victory was inevitable. Their formations were perfect. Their armor gleamed beneath the noon sun, and their commanders carried themselves as though the desert itself would bow before them. But the deeper they pushed into Nubia, the more they understood. This land belonged to Kush, not to Rome. The roads disappeared beneath shifting dunes. Wells dried or vanished entirely. Villages were empty, not from fear, but from design. Amanirenas had evacuated everything of value: water, grain, tools, leaving behind only silence. And silence was far more dangerous than resistance. The Roman legions expected battles. They expected lines of infantry, shields locked, archers on the dunes. Instead, they found a kingdom that had become smoke, a kingdom that refused to stand where Rome wanted it to stand, a kingdom that fought like the desert itself. Kushite riders appeared at the edges of Roman camps like mirages, just long enough to release volleys of arrows before dissolving into the dunes. Their movements were fluid, unpredictable, impossible for the legions to anticipate or pin down. The Romans had trained for cities, fields, sieges, but they had not trained for an enemy who never stopped moving. Every day supplies thinned, soldiers grew weaker, armor became a punishment beneath the African heat. Even the most veteran legionaries felt a creeping sense of unease, a feeling that the desert was swallowing them one breath at a time. Petronius ordered his men onward, believing momentum alone would break Kushite resistance. But Amanirenas had already decided the shape of this war. She would not meet Rome on open ground. She would let the land itself exhaust them. And when they were stretched thin, dehydrated, and frustrated, then she would strike. By the time Rome reached the city of Napata, they were no longer a conquering force. They were intruders deep inside a territory that rejected them. Napata fell, but not as a triumph, more like a desperate attempt to claim something, anything, in a land that refused to be conquered. And when Amanirenas arrived to see the city burned and looted, she did not weep. She did not retreat. She simply looked at the ruins and made a vow. Rome would pay for every stone they shattered. From this moment, the war changed shape. Rome no longer led the campaign. Amanirenas did, and she was about to turn everything Rome thought it understood into dust. The Egyptian retreat was not the end. It was the beginning of a truth Rome had never been forced to confront. For centuries, the empire had marched across continents with near absolute certainty. Cities fell, kings surrendered, provinces obeyed. Rome believed its discipline, its armor, and its sheer size guaranteed domination. But the deserts of Nubia and the queen who ruled them reshaped that belief. When news of the humiliation at Syene spread north, Rome did not respond with caution. It responded with pride. In Alexandria, frustration hardened into strategy. Roman officials whispered about restoring order, reclaiming honor, punishing rebellion. But beneath their fury, another feeling was beginning to form, one they were not accustomed to: uncertainty. Governor Aelius Gallus, who had overseen Egypt with complacency, was swiftly replaced. In his place, Rome sent a commander of experience, severity, and unbroken loyalty: Gaius Petronius, a general shaped by years of desert warfare and imperial discipline. His mission was simple: make Kush fear Rome, make Amanirenas regret defiance. End this rebellion permanently. Petronius mobilized a force designed to intimidate any army of the ancient world: heavy infantry with iron shields, archers trained in Crete and Syria, auxiliary cavalry from the deserts of Arabia, engineers capable of crushing fortresses under siege towers. As metal armor flashed in the Egyptian sun and red standards rippled in the wind, Rome believed victory was only a march away. But Petronius underestimated the land he was entering and the queen who defended it. The deeper the legions advanced into Nubian territory, the more the desert itself resisted. The heat was relentless. The wells ran dry. The roads vanished under shifting dunes. Kushite scouts watched every movement from the cliffs just beyond sight. Villages appeared empty, not abandoned, but intentionally cleared. Not a single Kushite soldier attacked outright. Amanirenas had turned the land into a weapon. Rome marched forward with caution, turning into frustration. When they reached Celsius, the border town, they found it deserted. Not a defender, not a villager, not a single grain of food. The message was unmistakable. Kush would not fight Rome on Rome's terms. Petronius burned the empty city, not as victory, but as a warning. He pushed deeper, toward Qasr Ibrim, believing that seizing the fortress would shatter the will of the Nubians. But when Rome reached the high cliffs of Qasr Ibrim, the resistance exploded. Kushite archers, renowned as the deadliest in Africa, released volleys with precision that stunned the Roman formations. Their arrows could pierce shield and armor, striking with deadly force. Night after night, Kushite warriors launched raids that stole supplies, destroyed siege equipment, and vanished into the dark before the legions could respond. Rome had trained for battle, but this was not just battle. This was a queen dismantling an empire's confidence, one strike at a time. Though Petronius eventually captured Qasr Ibrim, he quickly realized something the Roman Senate never imagined. Victory in Nubia was not the same as victory in Europe. The desert did not favor Rome, the terrain did not favor Rome, and most importantly, Queen Amanirenas did not fear Rome. Her counterstrike was inevitable. Her strategy was unfolding, and the empire was marching straight into her hands. The deeper the Roman legions marched into Nubia, the more they realized they were no longer fighting an enemy. They were fighting an environment designed to break them. The deserts of Kush were unlike anything Roman soldiers had trained for. Here the sun punished the unprepared. Here sandstorms erased entire trails within minutes. Here silence carried messages farther than any scout. And Amanirenas understood this land far better than any general born in marble cities ever could. As Roman columns moved south, they found nothing but emptiness. Villages were abandoned intentionally, storehouses cleared, roads hidden beneath dunes, wells sealed or poisoned to deny Rome the luxury of water. To the Romans, it looked like retreat. To Amanirenas, it was strategy. Pure, deliberate, merciless strategy. She did not allow her warriors to be pinned down in open terrain. Instead, she turned the entire desert into a weapon. Kushite riders attacked from distances Roman archers could only envy. They struck fast, vanished faster, and reappeared miles away before the Romans could reorganize. An entire patrol could disappear into the dunes, swallowed by a queen who commanded the sand as fiercely as she commanded her soldiers. Every mile south became a reminder. Rome had entered a kingdom that refused to play by the rules of empire. Still, Gaius Petronius pushed onward, driven by pride and the desire to restore Roman honor. He reached the fortress of Qasr Ibrim, a citadel perched high above the Nile, believing it would serve as a symbol of Rome's dominance. He was wrong. The Kushite defense was fierce and calculated. Nubian archers attacked from vantage points Romans could not reach. Night raids disrupted siege towers and supply carts. Every Roman advance cost more lives than Petronius could afford to lose. Rome had expected a swift victory, yet they now fought an enemy who refused to break, an enemy whose queen had already taken the head of Augustus's statue as a warning. Even after Petronius seized Qasr Ibrim, he knew it was not a triumph. Rome had gained a fortress, but lost momentum, morale, and the illusion of invincibility. Because Amanirenas was watching, she saw every weakness in the Roman advance, every exhausted soldier, every stretched supply line, every mistake born of arrogance, and she was preparing her counterstrike, a counterstrike that would prove something Rome had never imagined, that even the greatest empire in the world could find itself hunted. Amanirenas was not retreating. She was drawing Rome into a trap only she knew how to control, and soon the desert itself would rise behind her. The Roman march into Nubia began with confidence, the confidence of an empire that believed itself invincible. But the deeper the legions moved into Kushite lands, the more the desert stripped that confidence away. Here the landscape was not an ally, it was an enemy. Heat waves shimmered off rocks like rising spirits. Wind erased footprints within minutes. Wells vanished under shifting dunes. Maps became useless in a world that changed shape every hour. Amanirenas knew this land intimately. Rome did not. She used that imbalance with precision. Kushite scouts shadowed the Roman formations, invisible silhouettes on dune ridges. They watched quietly, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. What Rome had dismissed as barren wilderness was, to the queen, an arsenal. Sudden ambushes tore at the Roman supply lines. Night raids disrupted their sleep. Arrow volleys appeared from impossible angles, vanishing just as quickly. Rome's greatest strength, disciplined formations, meant little when the enemy refused to stand still. Petronius, the Roman commander, expected to break Kush swiftly. Instead, he found his army shrinking, not through open battle, but through exhaustion. Still, he pushed onward, determined to achieve at least one decisive victory. That opportunity came at the city of Napata, sacred to Kush, symbolic in its history and pride. When the Romans seized it, they razed buildings, tore down shrines, and carried away valuables as trophies. They believed the destruction of Napata would break the spirit of Kush. But when Amanirenas arrived and saw the ashes, something else happened instead. Her people did not collapse. They rallied. The queen stood beside the ruins, her one good eye studying the devastation, not with grief, but with clarity. She understood what Rome had just handed her, a reason powerful enough to unite the entire kingdom behind her. From that moment, the war changed. Amanirenas no longer fought to resist Roman expansion. She fought to defend the soul of her nation. Her warriors gathered in force, not driven by fear, but by fury. Men and women who had never before taken up arms stepped forward, determined to defend the memory of their ancestors. Kush was no longer merely resisting. Kush was rising. With her army renewed, Amanirenas made a choice few leaders would dare. She would strike back at Rome's nearest stronghold, not as revenge, but as a declaration. Kush would not fade into history. Kush would not kneel. Kush would answer fire with fire, but with strategy guiding every flame. For the first time since the beginning of the war, the Romans realized they were facing not a distant kingdom, but a queen who understood their weaknesses better than they understood her land. Amanirenas was not just defending territory, she was reshaping the balance of power in the ancient world. The dust of war finally began to settle across the Nubian frontier. Silence, heavy and unexpected, hung over the lands Rome had once believed it could easily control. No new legions marched south. No fortified posts advanced toward Kush. For the first time since the conflict began, Rome hesitated, and Amanirenas understood exactly why. She had not destroyed Rome. She had done something far more dangerous. She had forced Rome to reconsider its own limits. When Roman emissaries finally appeared on the horizon, their march was nothing like the proud columns that had once filled the desert. Their armor was dulled by sand, their banners subdued by heat, and their posture, not triumphant, but restrained. They came not as conquerors, but as negotiators. The meeting took place on neutral land, where desert winds carried no allegiance. No palace, no marble, no gold, just the open sky and the weight of two nations whose soldiers had bled into the same sand. Amanirenas arrived on horseback, flanked by the elite warriors who had survived every stage of the conflict. She carried herself not like a queen who had been battered by war, but like a leader who had outlasted it. The Roman officers bowed, not deeply, but noticeably enough that their intention was clear. And then the terms were spoken. There would be no tribute from Kush, no demands for submission, no Roman occupation in Kushite lands, a permanent border recognized by both empires. It was a treaty Rome had not granted to any African kingdom before and would not grant again for centuries. Even more astonishing, they did not ask for the return of the bronze head of Augustus, the symbol Kush had captured in defiance. Amanirenas kept it exactly where she placed it, beneath the steps of a temple, where her people could walk over it freely. Rome did not challenge this, because Rome had learned the truth. Kush could not be conquered. Kush could only be respected. When Amanirenas returned to Meroe, the capital erupted in celebration. Drums thundered across the desert. Torches lit every street and doorway. Generations would remember that night, the night their queen returned, not with spoils of conquest, but with sovereignty. Children ran beside her horse. Elders lifted their hands in blessing. Warriors beat their shields in rhythm, honoring their queen, the woman who had faced Rome and refused to break. Amanirenas did not stand above them. She walked among them, for she had never fought this war for herself. She had fought it for them. In the months that followed, The queen rebuilt what Rome had damaged. Temples were restored, villages revived, trade secured, and the people of Kush began to breathe again. But something deeper had changed. Her people no longer saw themselves in the shadow of Rome. They saw themselves in the strength of their queen, a ruler who had lost an eye, endured invasion, survived scorched earth tactics, and still returned standing tall. A ruler who proved that land can be reclaimed, cities can be rebuilt, but dignity, once lost, cannot be restored. So she never allowed it to fall. History remembers Augustus as one of Rome's greatest emperors. Yet even he, ruler of the largest empire of the ancient world, was forced to sign peace with a queen from the deserts of Nubia. Amanirenas became more than a monarch, more than a warrior, more than a strategist. She became a symbol carved into the identity of her people, a symbol that whispered across generations. No empire is invincible, and no nation is too small to stand tall. This was her legacy, not the battles she fought, not the wounds she carried, not even the treaty she won, but the message she left behind. Courage can halt conquest, and a queen with one eye can see what an empire with thousands cannot. Her story, carved into the memory of her people, became a testament to what true leadership means. Strength without cruelty, courage without arrogance, and victory achieved not through domination, but through endurance.
Subscribe now for more legendary stories from the past.